Welcome to the December 10th, 2020 Inspiring Author Conversation. Today we'll be speaking with Connie Whitman, but before I introduce her, I'd like to offer a few reminders, few logistics. The call is being recorded. You will receive a link to the YouTube video within about 48 hours after the call. Your attendance at these meetings does serve as your permission to be seen in the recordings. Please keep yourself muted unless you have a question and want to chime in. Also, please find your chat box. Typically, if you run your mouse over the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little chat bubble, and pull up your chat box and type in all your questions into that, and we will try and get to your questions during the half hour, 45 minutes that we have today. We promise to end the call around noon or shortly thereafter so that we can all get back to doing our fun stuff for the day. I want to especially welcome all the live audience today, and our theme for these conversations this year, and we'll carry this over into 2021, has been inspiring authors. We typically either have a conversation with an author or with someone in support of an author. Today we actually have both, because I think you help, as an author, you are also helping other people who are authors. So welcome Connie. Connie is CEO of Whitman Associates. She's a speaker, a podcast host, author of a #1 international bestseller, ESP, Easy Sales Process, 7 Steps to Sales Success. Her inspired teaching, transformational tools, and content ensure businesses grow income, by developing profitable relationship-based connections. For the past 2 decades, her signature 7-step sales process has helped thousands of salespeople grow and scale their businesses. Connie and I originally met through a shared connection here in St. Louis, although Connie is out on the East Coast. So welcome, Connie. I'm thrilled that you could join us today.
Thanks so much, Kath. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. I love spending time with you.
Well, thank you. We've had lots of fun the last 7 or 8, 9 months that we've known each other.
Absolutely.
Lots of fun stuff. So I hear you talk a lot about selling from a place of love to help grow our revenue. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I think it's actually the first chapter is named Love in my book. And the first sentence is, if you're not selling from a place of love, you're doing it wrong. And I really believe that. I've been in sales for 38 years, Cathy, and for me, the first time I sat with my first client, I was in my 20s. I didn't know anything. To be honest, I didn't even know I was selling. To me, I came to the table because I started with financial sales as an investment person. So I had all this knowledge. I had an MBA in finance, an undergraduate in finance, and I sat with my client and they were broke and they needed life insurance. Well, how do you sell them life insurance if they can't even put food on the table? So right out of the gate, for me, it was, how can I help this person with all this wonderful knowledge I have and educate them? And then they'll be able to protect their family once we get all their ducks in a row. So I didn't even know, I thought sales was educating and teaching. So, and I always felt that if I didn't share myself, my knowledge, right, my love with them, I always pictured, what if that was my mom or my dad or my grandma or my cousin? I would want whoever is trying to sell them, again, remember, I didn't remember it was sales, but whoever was trying to help them would do it from a place of love. So maybe it's how I was raised, Kath, but to me, if you're not sharing yourself, you're really doing it wrong.
From a timeline perspective, because I also started out in finance. We've talked about that.
Yes.
I never expected to be marketing financial services, but I went down that path. And so can you put it in a time perspective as to when you had this aha moment, that helping was better than selling?
It's funny. I think right out of the gate, I was 23 and I went.
Oh, so early on.
I was super young, and I got my licenses, my Series 7, all of those things that you need to do to be able to talk to people about, in my case, financial products and services. So right out of the gate, the first client I sat with, they literally had no money. I put them on a budget and I worked with them to come up with a realistic budget. but so that they could put money away so that he could in fact support his family. God forbid something happened to him, that the house would have been paid for, money would have been set aside for they had
Right.
2 little girls. So
So it's
yeah,
looking,
38 years ago.
yeah, looking at the big picture. Yeah. And when did you start your own business?
That was 20 years ago I
20
started.
years ago.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so it sounds like that concept of helping has been a part of the foundation of your business.
Absolutely, right out of the gate. And I think initially when I started my business, because remember now I had been in the industry, the banking, financial industry for
Mm-hmm.
about 13 years before I opened my own business, or actually more than that, 18 years before I started my business. So I knew a lot of people, and they knew me, and they knew, like I was good at what I did. I was extremely knowledgeable, but that I treated people fairly and respectfully. So right out of the gate 20 years ago, I pretty much got a client immediately, which was unheard of for a new business. And then all of my business for 20 years, I'm knocking on wood right now,
Yeah.
has been through referral and introductions. I don't
Yeah.
ever make a cold call. It's not the way to do business, in my opinion.
Yeah. So the 7 steps that you developed, did you have those right away 20 years ago, or have they evolved over? How has that
I wish I could
developed?
say, Kath, I could say at 23, I was that smart. I was not.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was over a period of time. I started to realize after I had a successful conversation with a client and it felt easy, I would self-reflect and think, why did that work so well? Let me duplicate that, right? Because I'm clearly on to something.
Mm-hmm.
And when something didn't go so well, I'd be like, you were off. You didn't present. You didn't ask enough questions. So I would self-assess a lot. And then over the years, my 7 steps, when I started my business, I knew they were the 7 core steps I needed
Yeah.
to go in and teach other people. Yeah. It was duplicatable. It was easy.
That's awesome. I know we're coming out of these 9 months of quarantine, and sales has changed a lot. I know I used to rely on networking and speaking in front of groups. I could usually always count on getting referrals or business out of those opportunities. What have you seen change, and how have you seen people pivot?
Well, I'll speak for myself, but for me, I did everything live. My whole organization, my business for 20 years was live speaking, live training, live
Mm-hmm.
everything. And then March 13th, everything stopped, came to a
Mm-hmm.
screeching halt. So sales is still sales. That's the same. But now I think we have to get really good at watching our body language and how we articulate in this platform, Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're always in Zoom in these galleries. So how do I connect with that client or that prospect or that person? It becomes I think, almost more intimate, and not in a weird
Mm-hmm.
way, because we're so close now. I can see your body language. I can see
Mm-hmm.
your eyes. You're not at the front table always in a networking event. I feel like everybody gets that front seat, so to speak. So you really have to articulate. You have to have a good microphone. You have a good microphone so that you come through clearly without background. Make sure your body language is open. Make sure you're groomed. Make sure your background. So I think it's an extension of who we are, that now in this virtual world, there's just a little bit more moving parts because people can't see you, touch you, feel you. You know what I mean?
I've noticed it's a bit more intimate.
I think so.
Yeah. Even if I liken it to how we used to sit at, round tables of 8, perhaps at a luncheon or a chamber meeting. And now it's just everybody's in your face, or you're in their face. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but you're essentially nose to nose practically. Yeah. So how has that changed the method that you're using to connect with people? I know I've been in some Zoom room or Zooms that have Zoom rooms, and you're able to connect in smaller groups that way. But how have you changed what you do? Perhaps an example of something you're doing differently than what you did 10 months ago.
So it's interesting. I actually hired a business coach this year, right? No income coming in. What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to still create this whole another division within my business.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that digital is here, but I don't know what I don't know. I'm not marketing, I'm sales. And there's a big difference between the two. So I hired this business coach. And the funniest thing, Cathy, it's been an education, because he'll say something to me, like I'll do something, like I did a webinar, a workshop, and it was an epic fail. Okay. So I'm okay with that because I believe, and I think Joanne Weiland says this, failing forward, and I believe that. So after I did this workshop and it was an epic fail, he said to me how to go. I said it was terrible, and I did this and I did this and that was wrong, and he started saying to me, well, why didn't you do this? And I went, oh, that's exactly what I would have done live. And then why didn't you do this? Oh, I would have done that live. So changing the framework, even being an expert in sales, I didn't do what I knew I should have been doing because it was a whole different vibration for me. So the learning curve, I'm exponentially going up that learning curve. But at the time, we all have blind spots because of this new platform. And I think sometimes you need to talk to somebody to say, you know, like, I should have had the V8.
Right.
Like, I should have known that. How did I not? So for me, that pivoting has been easy and not so easy, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
No, I completely understand because, you know, right now you and I are having a conversation and focusing on each other, but yet we know there's other people in the room and other people in the group with us. And I can see, even though I've been doing these lunch and learns for about 4 years now, I know I've gotten better this year because more people have joined because of the quarantine. What else are they going to do? You know, just let's go see what Cathy's doing. And so we're learning to juggle as we're running at the same time is what, And
I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I love that you've stayed in action because we work with a lot of people from all over the US, and I've noticed those that are in action, those are the people that are seeing more success and their business is changing and evolving, and people not afraid to step out. That's been the joy of watching people just stay in motion.
It's terrifying at times, to be honest with you. But I keep thinking, you know, what's the alternative? It's never going back the way it was. So what do I need to learn? And that, I think, was the biggest thing for me this year because I just turned 59. So technology is not something that's intuitive for me.
Not mine either.
Right. And everything is technology. So that learning curve, but I've learned to ask questions. I'm a curious person by nature. So I'm not afraid to learn. I'm not afraid to fail forward. So I'm like, I'll give it a shot. Let's see what happens. If it doesn't work, I'll try something else. Right. So I believe once you're in motion, it's easier to shift gears than to be stagnant, to say, let me wait and see. I'm not a wait and see kind of person.
So if I'm looking around the room that we have today, and we have some authors, we have people in, I think everyone here is in business for themselves, several consultants and private consultants. And if you were to offer some advice on places to go to find opportunities to network, how do we find those in today's world? You know, used to we'd, hit up a list of chambers of commerce, or we'd meet one person at one event and say, where do you network? And then build it from there. What has changed in that conversation for sales now?
So I have, when March hit, I started networking like a crazy person. And if someone put in an email to me, I have a networking event, I can't meet you then. I'm like, what networking event are you going to? Who, what's the platform? Who are the people participating? Can you send an introduction? So I was and I use the word aggressive, never disrespectfully aggressive, but I was very curious. Can you share that with me? Who's that? What's the platform? Do you think that would be a good fit for me? And so what happened is, because again, I'm curious and I ask questions, right? That's sales. You ask questions. I started getting introduced to all of these different networking places, all virtual. And what I started, I was probably on Zoom 40 to 50 hours a week. It was really fatiguing in the beginning, but I kept thinking pedal to the metal. You're going to meet the right people, keep going. And then, by June, I started to be a little more selective in who I dug in with and develop more relationships. Who did I join their particular programs where there was a membership fee? And so I started to be very, very discerning on which groups I worked with. But I started by asking, same thing you just described that we used to do live. I just did it in the virtual realm. And now I feel like I really found my people. And now I'm digging into those groups that have thousands of people, and they have web pages now that I could go and investigate and then reach out. Joanne is one of those people I met through Rebecca, right? So, you kind of
in and say, what can we collaborate? How can we collaborate? What are your people looking for? What are you looking for? How can I support that? So I'm really collaborating a lot more than I ever have in 20 years. It's kind of cool.
Well, I know, and you're on the East Coast, and I've heard this more than once, where things happen on the coast before it hits us here in the Midwest. And one of the opportunities, in fact, how I met you was through an organization that you're a member of for joint venture. Without an advertisement, because I'm not a part of that, but I know it was very successful for you and some of the people I know. Tell us a little bit about how that type of networking works.
So that was interesting too, because I had never been part of this digital framework. Now they have what's called joint venture affiliates. I had no idea. So I got an email from somebody saying, Connie, you should participate in this. So again, because I was open to these different venues, I'm like, I'll do it. Well, it's my time. I have the time. Let me jump in. And I started meeting these just amazing people. And I met Julie Hood through this networking, and she's the one who connected me with you. And she's a course creator, right? So she and I collaborated because I said, whoa, your people are creating courses and they have to market it, which Julie's good at, but they don't know how to sell when they get those more intimate conversations. So she and I started just talking, and we built an affiliate relationship. So all that means is if I sell one of Julie's products to one of my clients, I get a percentage of those proceeds. She gives me like a little referral fee. And reverse, if she brings people to the table that buy my digital programs, she gets a percentage of that referral. So it's as if you have people advertising for you. The cool thing though, Kath, and why this is so important, I can pick and choose the people that I do want to affiliate with. I have a very high standard with my business. I will not bring someone to the table who will not exceed my client's expectation. So that's the kind of cool thing, that you meet all these people, but then you can decide who do you want to affiliate with. And then you just set up affiliate links. It's all back, again, technology, another piece of technology to manage that. But it's a beautiful referral source. And this is how business is done in the digital realm. Who knew, right?
That's
Who knew?
awesome.
Yeah.
So as an author, how have you found, or how are you promoting your book? You're out there a lot. You're speaking a lot. You're virtually out there a lot. How have you been able to weave your book in and out of this new virtual world that we live in?
So of course, anytime I speak now digitally, I still get asked to speak because I know so many people. So I'm asked to speak a lot, and I always offer. They have to ask a question. The last one I did, Cathy, they had to remember your name. I mentioned your name during the speaking event, right? And at the end, we said, who did Connie work with to get her book published? Who was her godsend? I think is what I said. And the first 10 people that came up with the right name won the book. And then I signed the book and I sent it to them, and everybody is real excited. And at the speaking events, whoever's hosting it, right? I'm the speaker, but who's ever hosting it puts in the chat, buy Connie's book, and they give a taste of what they're gaining. And again, most of these events are business people. We have our own businesses. So they're eager to buy the book because it's an inexpensive way to learn how to communicate more effectively with their customers. So I'm really promoting the heck out of it. The second thing I did, and you've been on my podcast, Enlightenment of Change, which was all things change. Yes, it was still on a business platform, but I did a lot of spirituality in that as well. Now with the book, I created I'm doing a because yes, Cathy, I wasn't busy enough. I'm doing a second podcast, and it's called The Heart-Centered Sales Leader. And that's going to be strictly business. And with that, I talk about the book, and I, promote the book through that podcast, because you meet, a vast number of different people. So it's another good way to get your voice and the book out there for people to buy and use. So
that's awesome. And I want to remind everybody, if you have questions for Connie, make sure you put them in the chat box. We'll make sure we get to those questions. And we are going to include the link to your book in your, and I think Julie, if Julie's still on the call, I think she might be. Yes, I see Julie's lovely face. I'll ask her to put it into the chat box if she's at her desk. But that will go out in our follow-up email also on how to connect.
Thank you so much. Yeah, greatly appreciated.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, what are your 7 steps? Just like in.
Here's the thing, everybody that's either listening or on this, you're going to go, duh, this is so logical. So yes, that's why I said I wasn't as smart at 23 when I was 39, when I started my business. But the first step is preparation. So for me, the better prepared we are in life, just things go a little bit more smoothly. Can't control everything, but what can I control? My time, how I use my time, how I use my resources. Duplicatable processes become habits, right? So preparation. Number 2 is building rapport. We can't skip that. Whoever the person is in front of us, we need to connect on that very intimate level. And I also created a free communication style assessment, which is on my website. It's free. You get a little report. It kind of gives you what your superpowers are in relation to communicating and what your blind spots are in relation to communicating.
Oh, that's great.
Because you want to make sure we're staying connected with the person. So rapport building. Third, one of the most important, we have to ask the right questions. And really, you should be able to establish about 8 really good open-ended questions that'll get the job done and then some. With asking questions, we have to listen. So a big thing I always say when I train and speak, 2 ears, 1 mouth. We really should be listening at minimum twice as much as we speak. For me, the ratio when I'm with my clients, I speak about 30% of the time. They speak about 70% of the time. So the better questions you ask, the better listening you do when you go to present your solution. It is so spot on that the client doesn't give objections because they spoke 70% of the time. Right. So you clearly know what they need. And then hopefully you articulate that well for them at the end to say, how fast can we do this? The next step after that is ask for the business. What's the next step? It could be asking for the business. It could be scheduling a follow-up call. You want to keep them, and I have loops that I talk about, but you want them to stay within those communication loops so we can follow up, further engage, further cross-sell, and build that dynamic relationship. And then the 7th and last step is follow-up. And I call my follow-up CPR follow-up. Consistent, persistent, respectful follow-up so that the client knows they can count on you going forward. But CPR, it keeps them alive in your life, in your business. And then what happens through that follow-up, you become personal, you become friends with your clients. And that's how I live my life, but that's how I live my business as well.
Yeah. Well, and Lisa DeTocqueville. Oh, hi, Lisa. I see you up there. Thank you. Yeah, follow-up is so important. And I know I sometimes get so busy, it's like, I need to follow up with that person. And so you talked a lot about your 7 steps, and have you been able to, I love how you encapsulated them into easy tasks for us to do with your book. I know it made it a lot easier for me to understand. I wasn't taught how to sell. I come from the creative side. But so with that in mind, and I know we have a lot of creatives on the line today with us. When you work with people, you started talking a little bit earlier about how you're offering different programs that people can sign up for. Now, do you also work with people one-on-one? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I both, everybody is different. And for my entire career, really, whoever's in front of me, I customize for them. What are their objectives? So when I go to my corporate clients with all the live stuff, their culture is different than the next culture of the next organization. So that customization becomes real important. So even within my programs, I teach the topic, you get an assignment, but then there's group coaching calls because I have to be able to dig in and help you customize your questions, customize how you share the benefits with the clients, maybe help you get more organized. Everybody has something different they're working on. They have different deficits. So for me, it's not a cookie cutter approach. And then additionally, if people need a little bit more help, they could do one-on-one with me. I can mentor, coach. I do all sorts of things. And then I have multiple programs that they could be part of. So if you're really good at building rapport, you don't need that mini course, right? You might really need help with building the questions. So you would sign up for offer the deeper dive of that digital class on the questioning skills.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe in offering multitudes of things. So people, once you understand your definite, dig in there. That's where you want to start. You don't want to keep doing everything at once because then nothing changes. So I believe in focusing, executing, getting good at it, and then what's the next piece of the puzzle I need to add. So I'm very fluid with my clients, and I think that's important because everybody learns differently and everybody has different deficits.
Well, it's curious you mentioned that, because something you said a second ago reminded me, we're not all born with that sales instinct or that rapport building instinct. What are some of the mistakes that you see most often that maybe you could bring to our attention that we could be watching ourselves for?
Yeah, two big things. There's pitfalls for every step, but the two biggest ones I see is when you meet the client, you fast forward through the first 4 steps, and then you go into, and excuse the language, but we vomit what we can do to help the client. Mm-hmm. So it becomes this product dump of, well, you know what you need, blah, 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 and meanwhile, you're talking 70% of the time, and the customer becomes a bobblehead. They're doing the, this, but they're not, you're not asking them any questions. So you're telling them what you can do. I don't believe in telling. I believe in sharing and showing, but I have to understand first. So that's number one. And the other thing, and I'll give you some statistics, and if the folks want to write this down, 2% of successful salespeople, and oh, by the way, we all have some component of sales, whether you work for a company or you own a company, we have to sell. So 2% of that humongous population, they will follow up between 5 and 13 times, which in my case, I do quarterly follow-up. So I could follow up with a customer 3, 4, 5 years before they give me the business, because they have to, they're harder to trust or whatever. Most stop between, they stop 1 through 4 and they think, oh, I'm being pushy, I'm going to stop. So 92% of people stop, and only 20% of sales is made by those 92%. The 2% that touch the client from that 5 to 13 times make 80% of the sales. So just think about that for a second. We are, as humans, have a 6-second attention span. So clients need to hear things multiple times over and over again. And not because we're stupid. We just have so much noise today that we need to hear things repeatedly. And then all of a sudden, one day they say, you know, do you have, meanwhile, you've mentioned it 10 times. And you think, yes, I do. And but then they're ready to buy. But if you stop following up when they're ready to buy what you're offering, you're not following up. Someone else is, they get the business. So they're the two. Stop talking at your customers and do your follow-up. They're the two biggest.
Well, I know one of my biggest takeaways from our conversation today has just been the concept of thinking outside of the box. You know, it's, yes, there's, 7 easy steps, but at the same time, you can customize those for you and your audience and whoever it is that you're working with. So I understand that you have a gift for our listeners today. Tell me a little bit about that.
So actually 2, and I don't know if Julie has the links, but the one is the free communication style assessment. So if you just go to my website, whitmanassoc.com, it's right on that landing page. Additionally, and if you don't have this link, I could send it to you for the show notes, but I have a template, and it's for what we call that 30-second commercial, that introduction. Well, now that we're in this virtual realm, you need to be able to weave that down to about 17 words. So when you're in a group of 50 people on a Zoom and they say, hey, put in the chat what you do, you have to be as concise and precise to articulate what you do. It's about 17 to 20 words. You can copy and paste that into the chat and wait and see. You'll blow up. Oh, we need to meet. I need to talk to you. The people who are putting like 2 paragraphs in, I don't even look at them. I don't even read them. So they'll never get my business. They'll never be able to collaborate with me. You get it down to that 17 to 20 words. You're my kind of person, thinking they're efficient. They know what they're doing. That's who I want to collaborate with. So they're the 2 gifts that I'm happy to offer.
And there will be a follow-up email in the next 48 hours. And all those links that you just mentioned will be in that email.
Yes.
And people will get them. So I know they get the downloadable template, and then what was the other one that you said?
Oh, the free communication style assessment. They do an assessment, and you'll get a little report.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it'll rank your style. There's 5 behavioral styles. I won't get into that. But your highest you get a report for, and your lowest you get a report for. Because I want you to understand your superpowers, leverage that. That's our zone of genius. The lower one, I really share those reports. Understand your blind spots. Doesn't mean you're ever going to become a superstar at those blind spots, but that's an indication of maybe who you need to hire and partner with who are good at those skills that you're lacking.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
Good.
So,
Thank you.
Parting words of wisdom from a sales expert that you are to people who are involved not only in selling their business, but perhaps using their book as a part of that sales process. What are some parting words of wisdom in this environment that we can take and allow us to take action today?
So 2 things: network, network, network. You should be spending probably 10 hours a week, either in a network event or where you're following up with people from those networks. And then the second piece of that, please, after you network and you connect with these people, have a Calendly link or some kind of link, immediately schedule so you can have those one-on-one, even if they're 30-minute, so that you can see if that person is a good fit. And then you can always schedule an hour collaborative call after that. But do the networking, do the follow-up, and build. And here's the other thing: build your people. You're going to find the right people for you that think their values are the same. And that's how we can exponentially help each other and help each other grow our businesses.
It's that know, like, and trust. You know, we
100%.
get to know them, learn to like them. Hopefully they're learning to like you. And then, you know, once you reach that trust level, then it's much easier to recommend people to do business with each other.
And Cathy, you're just a good example of that. If I didn't have a good experience with you, I never would have introduced you. You are amazing. I was so excited to send, a dozen, 15 people to you because it was, number one, it was the right thing to do, but it helped my people. But they come to me. So I have people come to me. Do you know anybody that's doing this? Because I have I'm like, got the person for you. I'll send the intro email, right? I don't get anything for that. But what am I doing? I'm helping people. Now, when they see someone who needs my services, they're referring me. So it's just building your people. Build your people, guys.
Yeah, and Julie just added the 30-second one of the gifts, the link in the chat box. Couple more links in there. And guys, those will also be in the follow-up emails. So if you're not able to grab them out of the chat box today. Well, Connie, this has been fun. I could spend the rest of the hour just chatting with you and asking more questions. But I know we've all got to get back to doing our business and staying in action.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being here, and thank everybody else for being here also. Let's see, January 14th is our next Lunch and Learn. It is a Thursday, and we're going to be doing Navigating the Wild, Wild West of Publishing. It's a presentation that I give a couple times a year, letting people know the difference between DIY and traditional and independent. So bring questions, we'll have answers. And thank you, Kristen, for that comment. We've been so inspiring. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Thanks
My
everybody
pleasure.
for being here. We'll talk soon. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Bye.